Ivan Harlow had never been one for taking risks. He had spent most of his life in the cramped corners of city life, surrounded by the low hum of traffic, the constant flicker of fluorescent lights, and the occasional burst of sirens in the distance. But after the company he had worked at for 10 years dissolved into nothing more than lifeless and bitter rumors, Ivan realized he needed a drastic change. He needed space, real space. A place where he could breathe, work the soil with his hands, and finally hear himself think. That is when he stumbled across the listing, 40 acres of farmland in the valley, a leaning farmhouse, a rusted barn, and, most importantly, a price that made him low in disbelief. Cheapest farm in the valley, it read. The realtor, a small, nervous woman with permanent worry lines etched into her forehead, had tried to warn him. Unique circumstances, as he had said, her voice almost a whisper. It is unusual. Ivan, in his excitement, had barely registered what SH meant. He signed the papers, paid the price, and felt a thrill that was equal parts triumph and terror. In less than a week, he had possession. The drive to the valley had been long, twisting along roads flanked by forests that seemed to lean in closer with every mile. The sun was setting by the time Ivan crested the last hill. Below him stretched the farm. The fields were wider than he had imagined, dotted with stone fences that looked like they had been placed by some giant child playing with toys. The farmhouse leaned slightly to the left, the roof shingles worn but intact. The barn, once sturdy, now sagged under years of rain and wind. And the whole valley was bathed in the orange-pink glow of sunset, giving the land a surreal, almost otherworldly beauty. Ivan parked his truck, grabbing his bag and keys. Every step toward the farmhouse made him feel lighter, as if the weight of the city life he had left behind was melting away with each footfall. He inserted the key into the rusty lock, twisted it, and pushed the door open. Dust swirled in the slanted sunlight, and the familiar smell of old wood and rain hit him with a strange comfort. He hadn't even taken 2 steps inside when the ground beneath him vibrated. Just a little at first, almost like a distant drumbeat, then again, more insistently. Ivan froze. What the? He turned, expecting some natural explanation. But as he stepped outside again, scanning the fields, his eyes caught a movement that made his stomach lurch. From over the hill beyond the barn, 3 figures emerged. And they were not ordinary figures. Ivan blinked, convinced the fading light was playing tricks on him. But no, they were real. Each of them towered above the farmhouse, their heads brushing the clouds, their presence commanding the landscape as if the valley itself belonged to them, which, perhaps, it did. One of the women had hair the color of ripe wheat, braided thick and falling in a rope-like cascade down her back. Another had dark hair, sharp eyes that gleamed like polished stones, and a posture so confident it made the farmhouse look like a dollhouse. The third had red hair, flowing and wild, and a calm, gentle strength that seemed to hum in the air. They walked slowly, deliberately, their innermost feet causing the earth to tremble lightly with every step. Ivan could hear the grasses and soil crunch beneath them. And then, in a voice that was soft but deep enough to resonate like distant thunder, the white-haired woman spoke. "Small man," SH said. Evan's jaw went dry. I bought it," he stammered, pointing at the farmhouse like that alone could assert ownership over the land. The dark-haired woman's lips curved into a small, knowing smile. "So did ours," SH said. "They always do." Ivan took a cautious step back. "I don't understand. What do you mean?" The red-haired woman knelt slightly, her massive hands resting on the ground to steady herself. Her eyes, an unsettling mix of curiosity and calm, met his. "You see, this land has always been ours. Long before humans mapped the valleys, long before names and deeds mattered, we tended it. We shaped it, we guarded it, and now, you have come." Evan's mind raced. Surely, he was dreaming. The exhaustion of the past months, the constant stress, the sleepless nights, they had finally caught up to him. This was impossible, a hallucination, a trick of light. But when the white-haired giant crouched slightly, her fingers brushing the barn's roof as if it were a fence post, Ivan realized this was no trick. He was staring at being so massive and so alive that the farmhouse, his cheap little dream, looked absurdly small beneath them. I just wanted a farm, he said. His voice cracked under the weight of disbelief. I didn't know. You didn't know what? Asked the dark-haired woman. Her voice, too calm, carried a strange authority. That the land is alive. That it listens, grows, and chooses its guardians. That it already has stewardess. Ivan swallowed hard. The ground trembled again, just slightly, as if agreeing with her words. The white-haired woman studied him with an expression that was almost tender. The farm chose you, she said softly, or perhaps, you stumbled into it. But understand this, the land does not belong to the paper you signed. It belongs to those who respect it, and to those who will listen. Evan's chest tightened. He had imagined a quiet life, mornings with coffee, evenings with dirt-stained hands, a place to rebuild himself. And yet now, faced with these giants, these guardians of the earth, his dreams felt both insignificant and miraculous. What do I do? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The red-haired giant's eyes sparkled with humor. You stay, you work, you learn, and you remember that you are small here, not just in size, but in understanding. If you are willing, the valley will teach you everything else. Ivan nodded slowly, though his heart pounded with fear and exhilaration. He looked at the farmhouse, the barn, the fields that seemed to stretch forever. He had come seeking land, but what he had found was a living, breathing world that was far bigger and far older than he could have imagined. For the first time in months, Ivan felt a quiet thrill, a sense of awe. The farm hadn't just been cheap because it was overlooked. It had been waiting for someone willing to be small, humble, and attentive. For someone who could listen to giants without running. And as the three colossal women stood there in the last light of day, watching him with curious, patient eyes, Ivan realized that this was the beginning, not of ownership, not of conquest, but of understanding. The valley held its breath, and for a long moment, so did Ivan. Morning arrived with a soft golden light that filtered through the dusty windows of the farmhouse. Ivan Harlow awoke to birdsong and the distant hum of the valley, and for a moment, he almost convinced himself that the giants had been a dream. But then a shadow passed over the room, and the subtle tremor of the earth beneath his bed reminded him otherwise. He climbed out of the sagging bed and shuffled toward the kitchen, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. The farmhouse, despite its creaks and cobwebs, felt alive in a way he hadn't expected. The wooden floorboards seemed to vibrate slightly under his teeth, and the scent of damp earth and old wood mingled with the faint aroma of brewing coffee from the little pot on the stove. He poured himself a cup, hands trembling slightly, and moved toward the small wooden table by the window. And then he saw them. Three enormous faces loomed at the window, framed by the glass and the morning sun. The white-haired giant knelt carefully, her face illuminated by the soft dawn, her braid falling over one shoulder. The dark-haired woman crouched with amazed patience, eyes fixed on him like a hawk assessing its prey, while the red-haired giant rested her chin gently on the windowsill, her expression calm and almost amused. Evan's coffee cup shook in his hand. He set it down with a trembling thud. "Good morning," the red-haired woman said softly, her voice carrying across the short distance like a lullaby mixed with the rumble of distant thunder. "Morning," Ivan managed, his voice hoarse. I hope I'm not bothering you." The white-haired giant smiled faintly. "We live here," he said simply. "Bothering is not a concept we entertain. But we are curious about you, small man." Ivan swallowed. I just bought this farm. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I need it, and I'll work it, I'll fix the fences, tend the crops, keep the house, I'll do anything. I don't want to upset anyone." Tamsin, the one with the dark hair, tilted her head, her sharp eyes scanning him carefully. "Do you understand what it means to live here? He asked. Her voice was calm but carried authority, like the wind shifting across the mountains. This valley, this land, is not like other farms. It is alive. And it chooses its caretakers. I think I understand, Ivan said hesitantly. I've worked the land before. I'm willing to listen. I'm willing to learn. Maribel, the white-haired giant, nodded approvingly. Then we will teach you, She said. But first, you must understand the rules. You are small here, Ivan Harlow. You have claimed the farmhouse, but the hills, the fields, the rivers, they are ours. We have tended them long before humans measured them, before maps and deeds mattered. We are the guardians. You may share them, if you are worthy. Ivan blinked. Share, yes, Ilya, the dark-haired one, said. You may live in the house. You may plant, repair, work. But the valley is alive, and it answers to us. If you respect it, if you listen, you will thrive. If you defy it, you will learn quickly that the land has ways of correcting mistakes. Ivan took a deep breath, trying to absorb everything. So, you're saying I can stay. I just have to follow your rules. Maribel smiled faintly, a warmth that seemed to radiate through the room. More than rules, She said. You must understand the land. You must watch it, feel it, care for it. And when others come, buyers, surveyors, strangers, you will know what to say. You will know that the land already has its stewardess. Ivan nodded slowly, the weight of the responsibility settling over him like a cloud. He had expected an easy life, mornings with coffee and evenings with work. He had not expected guardians, 3 giants who had lived on this land for centuries, watching over it, shaping it. But somehow, despite his fear, he felt a quiet thrill. Okay, he said, finally. I'll do it, I'll learn, I'll listen, I won't sell. Ilya studied him for a long moment. Very well, She said. Then the valley has accepted you, in part. You will live here, you will work, you will listen, and we will watch. Maribel and Tamsin nodded in agreement, and the 3 giants rose with careful grace, towering above the farmhouse once more. The earth trembled slightly with their movements, and Ivan felt a strange sense of awe as he watched them retreat to the hills. They did not walk away but rather blended with the landscape, like mountains that had suddenly taken human form. Ivan sat back down at the table, staring at the coffee cup in front of him. The liquid trembled slightly, as though the valley itself was responding to the morning. For the first time in months, he felt alive. He realized that the farm had not been cheap because it was worthless, it had been waiting. Waiting for someone willing to be small, willing to respect the land, willing to learn from giants. He spent the morning exploring the farmhouse, checking the creaking floorboards, the broken windows, and the leaning barn. Everywhere he went, he felt the subtle hum of the valley beneath him. The fields seemed to sway even without wind, the grasses bending as though acknowledging his presence. The old well in the center of the farm seemed deeper, darker, and more alive than he had imagined. And from the hills above, he felt the gentle, watchful eyes of the 3 giants, keeping him within sight but giving him space to breathe. Hours passed, and Ivan found himself planting a small row of vegetables, his hands digging into the soil with a mix of determination and reverence. He could almost feel the giant's gaze encouraging him, guiding his movements, whispering instructions he could not hear but somehow understood. By the time the sun hung high in the sky, Ivan was exhausted, muddy, and exhilarated. As evening approached, he returned to the farmhouse, collapsing into a chair by the window. Across the valley, the 3 giants stood again, silhouetted against the fading sunlight. For the first time, Ivan understood the truth of their existence. They were not threats, they were protectors, and in that realization, he found a deep, steady peace. The farm was no longer just a place to escape. It was a living, breathing entity, watched over by beings who had existed long before him and would likely exist long after. And somewhere in the vast expanse of fields, hills, and rivers, Ivan knew that he had finally found a home. The giants remained on the hill until the stars began to prick the sky, tear forms dark against the twilight. And as Ivan settled into the farmhouse that night, he realized something profound: the farm had chosen him just as much as he had chosen it. The cheapest farm in the valley had given him everything he didn't know he was looking for: a place, a purpose, and guardians who would teach him to truly listen to the land. And in the quiet of that magical valley, with the faint rumble of the giant's movements in the distance, Ivan finally understood what it meant to belong.